Hi, everyone. This is Talkback. How often are two of my favorite subjects married together? This is perfect today, and I have the perfect guest. The subjects are history and musical theater. This is the season of Yom HaShoah, which is the Holocaust Remembrance. It's coming up in a few days, where we memorialize those we lost during the Holocaust. And we also remember those who survived. And we have special memories of those who survived by finding refuge and escaping from Germany and Austria to, of all places, Shanghai, China, between 1938 and 1940. And we have a special guest, a Chinese American violinist, a concert artist, a premier international performer, composer, professor of music at the University of Delaware, who has composed a musical play, going to be a Broadway musical, we hope, about the music in Shanghai, the classical music between the Jews who came from Europe, classical musicians, to join forces together with their Chinese classical music counterparts. So let me introduce him, Shang Gao. How are you? It's so wonderful to have you here.
Oh, I'm good. Hi, Sheila. Thank you for having me. Hello, everybody.
Did I do justice to your introduction? Is there anything, there is so much in your background that we want to talk about, but of course we're here really to celebrate the beginnings of this wonderful musical that you've composed, and that, but for COVID, might have had a faster start, right?
Yeah, thank you.
Yes.
Yeah, we locked out in many ways. We needed time to finish our final 15% of material, and the world sadly waited for us. And so
before we get into the details of the show, I want some background on you. Where were you born? When did you come to America? Tell us a little bit about yourself and your interest in this fascinating history.
Absolutely. I was born and raised in Beijing, China, to a musical family. Both my parents are violinists, and my grandparents as well. And they were classical musicians. And I came to the United States to study with a wonderful violinist by the name of Paul Cantor at the University of Michigan. I'm a big Michigan fan. Wish I played basketball last week. Anyways, that's a different topic. But I fell in love with this country. I met my American family who basically adopted me. I adopted them by choice, and I started to perform internationally as a concert soloist. As a sophomore, I was on the roster of the Columbia Artist Management at the time, performing with different orchestras worldwide, and I started developing a lot of interest in producing art large events, presenting concerts and art cultural events, and composing and teaching. So I'm just always curious, and so wanted to learn every aspect of performing.
So what year did you come to the United States?
About 2 years ago. No, 1991. That's like
okay.
After Michigan, I moved to Chicago to live there for about 2 years, and with my wife, newlywed wife, and then we moved to Delaware to join the faculty here in 2001. My first day of teaching was 9/11. That also changed my career permanently. I decided to do everything I can musically to have impactful productions and creations.
Wow, that is a very interesting very interesting date that you actually began at. It was a Tuesday, I remember it well. Wow.
Yeah, 27 years old, I dressed up in my first day of college teaching, had my first lesson at 8:30. 9 o'clock after the first tower was hit.
Right.
And my first ever college student said, "Professor Gao, do you know what happened in the accident in New York City?" I said, "No, let's start. I can't wait to start teaching." And then it was a half an hour lesson, and then the world stopped. So that's when I decided I don't want to just be a violinist. It doesn't work. I must do more to have more impactful productions available, creations available to change you know, hopefully.
Now I know that you told me about your your family that adopted you. You adopted them, and they happen to be Jewish. I think our viewers would like to hear a little bit about that family. And you and I were talking a little bit about matzo ball soup on Passover and how you missed not being able to visit them because they're in Arizona, and because
Yeah,
of COVID, hard to get there.
we, Rich and Susan, they've been so wonderful to me. Rogel, Rogel, they're big supporters of University of Michigan, and you can look them up. The cancer center is named after them. They're the Rogel Cancer Center. They were big supporters of the school music, and I benefited from that, and I became part of the family, and they helped me tremendously, and I spent every holiday, a lot of Jewish holidays with them, and one of my favorite foods is matzo ball soup and stuffed cabbage.
Wonderful. Well, before we get to what you've been working on now, the Shanghai Sonatas, tell us a little bit about your performing career. I see in your resume that you've entertained 2 presidents. Tell us about the different engagements you've had.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I've performed all over the world with different orchestras, professional orchestras, big orchestras and small orchestras, chamber music, recitals, and that was all I was doing before I started teaching at UD. And I still continue to perform, but my direction shifted after 9/11. I traveled to Europe and played like a 2-month recital tour. I played for world leaders, and I also played in a lot of chamber music and even world music. I love jazz. I like funk jazz, world music, folk music, traditional music. I'm just always curious in all styles of music. If you go to my website, shangal.net, you'll be able to see many different weird sides of me musically.
Okay, and with all your concert career and your international travels, you still are a professor of music at the University of Delaware, right?
Yes, I teach at Delaware. It's a great school. We are the proud alma mater of the first family of the United States. I'm not political myself at all, but Joe Biden graduated here. I've personally performed for both of them multiple times, and I love teaching because the world belongs to the next generation, and the art of classical music and all the important knowledges I learned to become a presenter and producer and composer, chamber musician, world musician. I want to make sure the students can get all of that from me, because I've had amazing teachers growing up, and I think it's a noble profession.
We know from history that music and art, performance are wonderful ways to express and advocate for social changes, for education, and that's what you're doing with your work. So let's talk about how you developed an interest in this, and start with the idea that between 1938 and 1940, about 20,000 Jews managed to escape Hitler, and Shanghai was one of the only places on earth that would take them in. And several hundred of them, Sean, as you've expressed to me and as I've read, were classical musicians. I guess some brought their instruments, some left them behind, and we'll talk about that. So with that beginning, tell us how you developed your interest in this project.
Yeah, one of my biggest missions in life musically is to promote cultural understanding musically, artistically. And my wife and I were both originally from China, and we still have family in China. And so every summer we would bring friends and donors of our university concert series to China as volunteer tour guides to show them, the 5,000 years of history and culture and music of the Middle Kingdom through our own views. And it's a way for us to gather support as well. Many of them come back and become board members and supportive of classical music and special productions at UD. So every year we will go to 4 cities. Of course, we canceled this past year, and you know why. And then we we will visit Shanghai, but in Shanghai, I always take a free afternoon. I just, say, you guys go wherever you want to go, it's free afternoon. But always, every single year, a group of Jewish Americans would go to this Jewish Refugee Museum in Shanghai, a small temple. And this 5 years ago, this group of people, friends, say, Sean, you got to come with us. So I decided, okay, maybe I should check it out. Why are people going there every year? And then the director, Mr. Chin at the time, he's still the director and the lead curator of the museum, asked me, I don't see Chinese people here. Why are you here? I always see, people from all over the world, and they speak different languages. They point at the names on the wall and then they leave. They must be related to the refugees. And I said, I'm from the US. I'm here. I like to buy some books for my American family. They have Jewish culture and family members who should learn about this. And then he said, what do you do specifically? I said, I'm a concert violinist. I teach and I compose. And that's when he said, you got to really learn about the classical musicians who came from Germany and Austria. By the way, Shanghai was not one of the places. Shanghai was the only place after international meetings of multiple nations that accepted the Jews. And they came, they had absolutely nothing left. They were like, us, Sheila. They were middle-class people who enjoyed a pretty comfortable life, gave up everything in return to leave the country. But what they didn't have was a passport. So they were total refugees. Nobody took them. So they appreciate the local Chinese for accepting them with open arms. They had nothing left but music. So they decided to share the music. Music survived, helped them to survive the war, but also helped them to make new friends. And they taught the first generation of serious Chinese classical musicians. Now, I am one of the millions of classical musicians of Chinese descent worldwide. If you look at every youth orchestra, every all-state orchestra, every conservatory, every professional concert hall, you will see a large number of classical musicians of Chinese descent. Mm-hmm. And 75 years, later, we're hoping to tell the untold story to the world, connecting the dots, but also promoting Holocaust and genocide awareness, promoting unity, diversity, inclusion, equity, cultural understanding, tolerance, everything that we should be talking about today, unfortunately, Sheila. It's a sad world right now. And I'm also proud that I'm getting so much support to bring the production, to bring our education to every corner of the country, that I conceptualized this whole thing with the hope to have an impactful production. How I wish I was wrong, that right now this production is the most timely, that precisely addresses all these issues now in the United States. That breaks my heart. Right.
And the interesting thing that you told me about when we had our introductory talk a couple of weeks ago was that the Chinese are by numbers, the most fanatic fans of classical music in the world. Isn't that right? Of any peoples.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. I mean, from a non-Western cultural point of view, China has produced more classical musicians, leading classical musicians, than any other non-Western country combined. Right. In short amount of time, a few decades. And China, the country itself, is the largest market in classical music. The number of concert halls, students, performers, orchestras, activities, and Juilliard just opened its only overseas campus right before the pandemic. In the Philadelphia Orchestra and all these major orchestras, they tour China annually. The world's most beautiful and advanced, acoustically perfect concert halls are all in China right now. It's unreal how much they value this cream of European culture and human creativity.
So it's interesting that by the 1940s, when Japan took over Shanghai and was allied, of course, with the Nazis, many of the Jews in 1943 were put into the Shanghai ghetto. But yet the Chinese and the Jews had an alliance of sorts, and your new production celebrates that connection of music between the Jewish classical musicians who came from Europe and the Chinese who helped them express their talents and brought brought them together, right? Was
Absolutely.
that your goal? That is your goal, to talk about that, right?
Yeah, it's really a piece that is not about the Chinese and the Jews. It's about all peoples. You know, one group of people is hurt. We all suffer, and the Jews and the Chinese had close to zero connection or anything in common, right? From
Right.
language to culture to religion to tradition to everything. And you know, it's interesting you mentioned the Japanese invasion army during the time, especially after Pearl Harbor. And if you really read history, that the Japanese Americans in the United States were also being punished for no reason, right? So we're for our education offerings, we're also including an important chapter in U.S. history where the Japanese Americans were put in concentration camps, and it's a crime against humanity, if you ask me. And now the Asian Americans are also suffering. We're paying for the so-called China virus, Wuhan virus, Kung Fu virus, and the U.S.-China relations suffers, and then we're being punished. Those things are to be addressed. And humans, you know, we do horrible things to each other multiple times through our history, and so this show is truly about all peoples, and that's the goal. But also we share the experience from an immigrant perspective. You're going to a different strange place. You want to feel the sense of belonging. The real sense of belonging is where love, kindness, and music is available, in my personal opinion. And that's why this show is so universal and so much appreciated. We had our last workshop performance right before the pandemic in Delaware. You know, I could have made money selling tissue paper, Sheila. People were crying, you know, laughing with tears.
Oh.
I love to share a short trailer with everybody so we could get the basic.
Okay, before you share the trailer, I just want to set the stage just a teeny bit more, because we want people to realize that this is not all classical music, that you've written what's essentially a Broadway musical, and you have all different kinds of music. You've got jazz, you've got pop, you've got classical, chamber music, right? We want them to know that you've got the whole panoply of interesting characters, from the Chinese to the Jewish immigrants, men, women, romance, right? I mean, it's a show, it's a production, and it's not just about the classical music, right?
True. It is a true musical theater production. You know, I went to Michigan. Michigan has a huge musical theater department, and one of the top 3 in the country. I'm a songwriter when I'm, you know, not performing. I've been doing songwriting all my life since you know, age 11. I always loved that. But this show does promote classical music. There's a very important little secret behind the show to promote classical music in the most effective way, if you will. It tells a true story. These stories were based on 4 years of research, based on true stories of Jewish memoirs and told stories. And then, but we, as a composer, I'm also the composer of the production. In addition to conceptualizing and producing it, I decided we must use classical music. So our cast members, we have to have amazing singing actors who also play violins.
Wow.
Because this is a story of classical musicians. So we are inspired by the most beautiful classical music repertoire, and then we share some of the most beautiful moments of classical music repertoire with the audience that normally would not have the opportunity, because the audience for classical music is slightly different from the audience of musical theater. Musical theater is pop culture, is much wider family audience. So I wanted to put the guard down for people so they could come in thinking this is, it's this dancing, storytelling, and singing and acting, but they also can be immersed in the most beautiful music mankind created. But we do incorporate Jewish traditional music, Chinese traditional music, musical theater, jazz, big band, because after all, it's a Broadway style musical. So, and we are working with people. We have 4 Broadway producers, very successful producers. They want to pick up the show. So that's because this looks and sounds like a Broadway show.
Right.
Could be.
Just one more element, and that is that some of the violins that are used in your show come from the Violins of Hope. I want you to talk about that. That's an unbelievable project, restoring violins that were owned by people who went through the Holocaust, some who perished, some who survived. Just talk about that and then show the trailer.
Sure. So we have two touring partners. So we are about to launch our national tour. So the national tour will start in the spring of 2022. If people out there are interested in talking to me, we're actually offering some special funding opportunities for leading orchestras and presenting organizations to help them to reach out to the new, audience and new donors and into the Asian American community and Jewish American community, minority communities, immigrant communities. We're touring the concert version because the full production is too big to tour. It's so expensive. We wanted to really perfect the show and then have our Broadway success first before it becomes a touring full production. So the concert version is for either a chamber ensemble with our full cast or with a full orchestra with a cast and without the set, without the big things on stage, but we can tell the whole story and perform the whole thing. But education is the core value of this production. I started this in 2017 because I wanted this to be an educational piece. It's not entertaining. It is super fun to watch this show. You get to hear this.
Violin of Hope.
So
what did you?
Yes. So for education, we invited two partners. They joined us in December. One is the Shanghai Jewish Ghetto Museum. That's where this whole journey began, right? And Mr. Chen is joining us. So they're sending Shanghai Jewish Ghetto artifacts, so we're doing that as an exhibition, and then we bring classroom activities. The other is collection in Israel. There's a feedback from something. Do you hear a feedback?
No, you're okay.
Okay, good. Anyways, well, that's gone. Beautiful. So the Violins of Hope collection is so powerful. It's a collection basically of instruments saved and repaired by a father-son violin maker team, Amnon and Afshi Weinstein of Israel. They saved the instruments that survived the concentration camp and then toured instruments with educational activities internationally. So they picked Shanghai Sonatas because we have our cast members who play an instrument telling the same story from a total different perspective. Suddenly, this becomes the best type of musical offering at the end of Violins of Hope residency because their final event is a musical performance to give the voices to the instruments, to the victims who were murdered. Now, imagine we're telling the story that actors are playing the same instrument that was owned once by the victims of the Holocaust, who played music using these violins, accompanying executions, faking the humane status of the concentration camp when the Red Cross organization came to visit. Many Jewish musicians were so sick of classical music because they were forced to play to entertain the SS officers. As a classical musician, when I heard amazing violins say, "I'd never want to hear them play classical music anymore," that is beyond sadness. That is unbelievable because in my world, every minute, every part of my being is because of music. But to get to that side that you never want to do music, it's hard to believe. So I want you to know that when we tour, not only you will hear the true stories, but you actually get to hear these instruments. I get goosebumps, but just by talking about it.
Right. So Sean, you gave us a perfect introduction now, so we could watch the trailer and really get a good understanding of it.
Sure. This is a 3-minute trailer. It gives you the storyline. I hope you enjoy it. Here it is.
Great.
It's the year When we can turn the clock back, we'll be like we were before. With my violin each day, always on call, and that is how I made it here. They would command, the violin would play. Then it was wrong to make music. We see the rise of our sun. Maybe tomorrow we'll cross that garden bridge, a bridge that leaves behind our tears, a bridge across our fears. Maybe tomorrow we'll cross that garden bridge. Life begins across that bridge. Liberation, 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 it is true, we are free, liberation, salvation, and salvation, we can walk to any place we like to be. We can never turn the clock back. Life as we have known it is gone. There's a love for your music. Now I've learned my heritage. This is my ancestry. My teacher's teacher's teacher was a Jewish refugee. Everyone
Wow, that was a great trailer. I thought that was great.
Thank you.
I know you have some other trailers, but let's kind of set the stage for them. You have some other things to show us from the show. Do you want to tell us about some of the characters' lives? And you wrote did you write the entire concept, and who wrote the lyrics to the songs and the book? I know you compose the music. Talk about that.
Yeah, we have two other amazing collaborators. The creative team basically includes me as a composer, producer, and Alan Goodson, who is an American book writer and based in LA. And he wrote the book, and he did a lot of research as well. And lyricist is Joyce Hill Stoner, who's also an amazing lyricist and musical theater professional. She's been in the field for over 20, 30 years, 40 years, but she's also a professor at UD teaching something tremendously different. She went to school with all the big, Broadway stars who created Lion King and all these big shows. But anyways, so we've been working together since 2018, and I spent about a year prior to that to do research. It's like a marriage of three people. Thanks to the technology, we could work remotely. But it's a very, very difficult process because most musical theater creative team will break up at some point. It's very hard to continue. But because there's so many moving parts, right? Alan would write the story, then he would decide, okay, at this moment, the plot needs to be pushed by a beautiful song because words are not good enough. And then he will say what I want the characters to sing about, tell what story, and then Joyce would then create the lyrics. They have to be easy to understand. They have rhyme. They have to be clever. Inspiring. It's so difficult. People think musical theater is just fun and easy opera. It's totally not true. It is incredible, just like a pop song. Think about pop song. It seems easy, easy to remember. It is an art. If so everything that becomes art it takes lots of brain power and lots of.
So it's collaboration, of course. And we know from history, I hope your show is a huge success, but we know from history that so many people devote so many years to writing new musicals that, just don't make it. But this one is going to make it because it's timely and it tells a story and you're the composer. I want you to tell us, before we get into the next, you have some more video to show us, and we're anxious to see that. But tell us the premise of the show. It's something about somebody in the present day magically goes back to the 40s in Shanghai. Just give us the beginning structure of how it works.
Yeah, it's an interesting story that we're creating because we need the vehicle to travel back in time. We have to bring people back to the 1940s, right? So the way Alan designed this is that Benny Dao, who is the new character, Chinese American violinist, he's very famous. He makes a lot of money. He plays great instruments. He travels internationally playing with different orchestras. Alan's sort of based loosely on my story, but it's really not my story. But at least this part, Benny is very privileged, and then he doesn't care about the world. He's just famous, right? But then he goes to Shanghai to perform, and his violin is broken, and then he needs to meet this Mr. Chen, the violin maker who also grew up in the Shanghai ghetto, and then through playing Mr. Chen's magical instrument, he travels in time back to the 1930s, and he meets the Jewish refugees. He learns how they actually, in a strange place, survived, and then because of music, because of the tradition, because of love, because of cultural tolerance and understanding, how everybody survived, and so he finds out also during the same time that his grandparents were taught by these Jewish musicians that is beyond his wildest dreams. So, and it's similar to my experience in a way, but it's so much richer, and it's based on true stories. Yeah, so that's sort of the vehicle.
So let's see another video. Set the stage for this next video that we're going to see. Okay.
Sure. So if we have this song, one of my favorite songs is called "Turn the Clock Back," but the other one is called, I will show that later. It's called "Year of the Underdog." So at the beginning of the show, we need to introduce characters, right? We need to quickly let the audience realize, okay, this guy is from here, then this guy is from China, blah blah blah. So "Year of the Underdog" takes place, in the past, and we were just able to tell the narrative, and a good musical theater songs really do that, right? And you're meeting the Jews and hearing about their escape from the Nazis, and meeting the Chinese who are, oppressed by the Japanese army, and how they become friends and find upside of the downside, and then the spin of the Year of the Dog, because Chinese, they celebrate different years. This is the Year of the Dog. And then now they are all part of the Year of the Underdog, and they can find a great cheer in making the best of the situation together as friends. So I love to share this song called "Year of the Underdog." I hope you enjoy it.
Okay.
It's the year I lost everything, but I don't sing the blues. Now in the year I lost everything, what have I got to lose? The knock on the door, my life was stalled by an invitation to book involved. No time to plan, no time to pack. By God's good grace, I escaped through the back. It's the year I lost everything, but I don't sing the blues. Now in the year I lost everything, what have I got to lose?
Knock on the door, Our lives were changed. Plans we had been making were rearranged. Our music's gone. You've heard the news. Their concerts stopped when they lost all their Jews. It's the year I lost everything, but I don't sing the blues. But in the year I lost everything, what have I got to lose?
I played first violin in each concert I was in, from Vienna to Calais. Now I take out the trash just to earn a little cash, but at night I play for the local cabaret.
Now we pull a little cart, hoping we can sell some rice.
I try not to complain about the mildew and the rain and the rats and the mice and the walls that crawl with lice. Do you know what year 1939 is in China? Isn't every year supposed to be some kind of animal?
It's the year of the tiger.
Oh, I was hoping it would be the year of the dog. I had to leave mine behind in Germany. I miss him.
You don't need to miss him. We all live like dogs now.
And the Japanese are the tigers,
Devouring all of us. Japanese at our door and all new rules. We're no longer safe in our homes or schools.
They're at each shop, they're at each stand. We're prisoners here while we're in our own land.
Now I work in a mine, I once owned a railroad line, but we take what we can get.
Now we sleep in the street and we beg for what we eat. Each day's a roulette to avoid a bayonet.
That must mean that this is the year of the underdog. We're all underdogs now.
It's the year of the underdog. If we can just survive, now we've got new friends and family. We're glad to be alive.
You can teach violin.
I have a class you could be in.
That'll be where I belong.
We have food we'll give you.
I can make us all a stew. Then we'll play mahjong
And we'll all break into song. It's our year of the underdog. We'll live another day. Now we've got new friends and family. Toast for Harlem and Bombay. It's the year of the underdog. We'll live another day. New friends and family. Toast for Harlem, Bombay. Great.
So Lahain.
Hi, there you are. That was very, very great. And you know, it's so interesting to read the stories. People like, I know you know Betty Grubenshikoff. I interviewed her last week, and she's a consultant on your show. And she was a teenager in Shanghai, got married there. But the affecting sadness of the Shanghai people who, they were underdogs in Shanghai, but they survived. And when they found out what happened to their brethren, their loved ones back in Germany and Austria, I mean, it was so devastating after the war to learn that while they had their troubles in Shanghai and some were sent to concentration camps in China, to take in the enormity of what happened to their families was too much for them to bear. And I know you show that in your show.
Yeah, you know, this next song I really want to share, Sheila, is one of my favorite songs of the musical. It's called it's called "Turn the Clock Back." So you know, you and I people in the audience, we know life would never again be like it was before for the Jews in Shanghai. Because we know, you know, what happened, but the characters don't. So every time I hear this, I'm just so, it's so sad. You know, it's such a heart-wrenching, bittersweet quality. You know, their hope is very sweet. We're gonna go back. We're gonna be fine. You know, we're only here for a year, guys. What are you talking about? But the tragedy will be bitter. And I think the lyrics and music really do a great job here. I'm not bragging about it, but I'm just saying it's my favorite, one of my favorite moments of the show, because we're with them in two different universes. So I love to share this, if you don't mind. Turn the clock back.
Okay, great.
Letter from my daughter in Vienna says that they burned down all the synagogues and no one dares to go out anymore. I haven't heard anything since.
I haven't heard a thing from my mother or brothers in months.
And nothing from my family in Munich either.
Don't worry. We didn't come to Shanghai to stay forever. This is all gonna blow over in a year and we'll be back with our friends and families.
I hope you're right, Sam.
Sure I am, honey. Soon when we can turn the clock back, soon we'll go through yesterday's door. Soon when we can turn the clock back, we'll be like we were before.
Soon we can turn the clock back. Soon we'll go through yesterday's door. Soon when we can turn the clock back, we'll be like we were before. My hair and clothes were up to date. I spent summers by the sea, had tea on the balcony. We'd walk in the park and dine after dark. The world belonged to me.
I'd drink good beer and laugh and sing all the songs I could compose, staying up till the bars would close.
Our cares were all gone. We'd eat lots of pop
and learn the latest dance.
Leo and I played many duets. We were in demand, and then it ended. When it's mended, we'll be back in our own land.
I'll play again in Vienna. I start at the concert hall. They'll meet me in the orchestra for the Ringo Parsifal.
Soon when we can turn the clock back,
We'll go through yesterday's door. Soon when we can turn the clock back,
We'll be like we were before.
we'll see our families and our friends.
my dear mother, I'll see her.
We'll break out the best liquor.
New babies to meet, old uncles to greet. We'll be the way we were.
Soon when we can
Turn the clock back. Soon we'll go through yesterday's door. Soon when we can turn the clock back, we'll be like we were before. Time will be our friend.
These dreadful days will end.
Live in harmony once more. In the Germany,
Austria.
We knew
and loved
Very nice. How do you work, Sean, with the lyricists? does he have the concept first and then you write the music, or do you do it together? How does that work?
What a great question, Sheila. She creates the lyrics first. That's how I work. I need to be in that story. I need to read the lyrics. I need to feel that I'm inside the show. And then she and I will talk about tempo and the general feel of this and style and yeah, and then I always go back and say, hey, Joyce, I don't think this word really sounds good with this harmony. And it's just so many moving parts. It took us 4 years. When we met with Susan Stillman, who's our consultant as well, 3-time Tony Award winning director, she said, all her big shows took 4 or 5 years to fruition, and this is the end of our 4th year, so we're really looking forward to the.
I've heard stories of shows in being concepts and in workshops for many, many years before they come to fruition. You've heard that too, I'm sure. Yeah.
I mean, Hamilton took them 10 years before they hit Broadway.
So what I'd like you to do now is, now that we've had a beautiful ballad and we've had some dancing music in the kind of the Jewish vein, I would love you to give us a clip with some classical music and tell us what the classical music is and why you chose that particular piece to insert in your show.
Well, I could share maybe one piece that is influenced by Tchaikovsky's Rococo variation for cello and orchestra. There's a D minor section that just melts your heart. It's beautiful. I often remember Yo-Yo or Rostropovich. It's a very one of my favorite classical moments. And I turned that into a song called Your Story. It's sad. Is also kind of Jewish. These Jewish couple. They're musicians. They were separated by the Nazis for 3 years, and they finally get together in Shanghai, and strange place, and they start to talk about what happened in the past 3 years. So that's influenced by classical music. All right. So let me find that clip real quick called Your Story.
Okay. Great.
Give me a second, please. All right. Oh, I have to remove the old videos. Sorry about that, guys. This is my first time. Let me move some of the old videos out of this thing. Okay, now I got it. Okay. All right.
That's okay. This is the Zoom world that we're all getting used to. Maybe we don't have to get used to it too much. We'll see. Here you go.
I've missed you too. You have no idea.
Let me hear your untold story. I have you here beside me now at last.
You don't want to hear this story.
I must hear all that you've been through, what they did to you. Now that's in the past.
Let me hear your untold story. I want to know each danger you went through. You were hope, you were my future. Horrors I saw every day, I could push away when I thought of you. All the friends I left behind, where are they now? They may not even be alive. Songs of Rachel ringing through my mind helped me to survive.
Let me hear what really happened. Perhaps you can get through it. on my own. On the journey, you were there with me. I was not alone.
That's it. Mhm.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, I want to now, we'll turn to some stills that you can talk about as we conclude. But do you want to say some final thoughts about the show? First of all, how can people find your website? What is your website and where they can learn more about it?
Yes. Please go to shanghaisonatas.com. One word. Shanghai, the city Shanghai Sonatas, like a classical musical sonatas.
Okay,
ShanghaiSonatas.com. You have all the information you need. And we're going to be start touring in early 2022, and with our Violence of Hope partners and touring exhibitions. If you want to bring this to your city, we're hoping to bring to 16 to 20 U.S. cities. Please contact me, and we're going to try to find a way to bring the production to you, the education as well. Oh, thank you, Aziz, on my screen.
Okay, great. All right, let's take a look at some of these photos I have that I've collected that you've given me and some that I've collected. There you are, Sean. Where are you standing when you're taking this magnificent photo? Where are you?
I do a lot of national parks and Earth Day type of concert videos, music videos, because I'm a big environmentalist. This was at the that Horseshoes State Park, so in Utah. And so,
Wow, beautiful. And your outfit, where do you get your clothes? I know sometimes you wear a tuxedo. Here you're wearing an outfit where did you have that made?
I made it myself. No, I'm
Wow.
I'm joking. Someone else did it. I don't even remember.
Terrific. And your violin, what kind of violin do you have, and how many do you have, and how many have you had?
Yeah, I'm lucky. I have great instruments to play. I have a GB Cerruti violin that University of Delaware purchased for me. You know, I helped UD to raise a large amount of funds. I'm a fundraiser myself, and you know, I was instrumental in the $48 million art center, and in return, they rewarded me with a $500,000 violin. It's the best Cerruti violin on the planet, and it's better than most Strauss and Guarneri's. I have access to the Stradivari Society instruments. I'm a recipient of the Stradivari Society in Chicago.
Wow.
I played many of their Strats, and I don't like to travel with these really expensive instruments because, you know, border control is, you know, it's not my violin. It is my violin. Whose violin, and how much is it worth? And you know, it's so. But I'm lucky. I have great instruments to play. Thank you.
All right. So, Sean, name your top 3 violinists of all time. Just the top 3.
Sheila Horvitz.
Uh-huh.
Isaac Perlman.
Uh-huh.
I want to say Isaac Stern, all Jewish, and they're amazing inspirations to my career. And as a matter of fact, I'm hoping to be in contact with Mr. Perlman about a big project in May. We like to bring a lot of young violins together to do a music video promoting unity.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
Terrific. Let's see. So I was showing this one because this is the logo. Now, who designed this? And you need artists as well as musicians, right?
He's a great friend of mine and a wonderful colleague at University of Delaware. He's the rock star art design and art artist here, and his name is David Brindley. He designed this, you know, with the clef and with the, you know, the special colors. China, the color of China is red and black.
Red, yeah.
And the sonatas with, you know, the shape of water, because Shanghai in English means the city above the ocean, above the sea. So yeah, I like the logo very much.
And of course, the symbol looks a little bit like a treble clef running through it. So you got the music. And
we specifically designed the title also. You know, the SS also has its own sad meanings, right? So,
right.
And the SS officers in the Nazi Germany. So
terrific. A lot of symbolism just going into the logo for the show, right?
You have
Beautiful.
great questions, Sheila. I'm so impressed.
Yeah. And now I know she's famous to those of us who love musical theater. Susan Stroman, how is she connected with you?
Yeah, so this is the production that was born in Delaware, right? I'm a UD professor, and Joyce Hill Stoner is also a UD professor. Even though we don't write musicals for the University of Delaware, but we're related to the university. And Susan is actually a UD alumna. So as an alumna, she's of course a huge name in the musical theater world. You know, multi Tony Award winner and big director and choreographer. And she's our one of our consulting advisors. And Betty Gorbetchikov, of course, is another one. She's a survivor of the Shanghai Jewish ghetto, and we based on some of her true stories to create our characters. So.
Right. I'm wondering, I interviewed her last week, and her wedding dress is in the Shanghai Museum, Jewish Refugees Museum. She donated it to them. And of course, you've got a wedding dress and a wedding in the show. So is that somehow patterned a little bit after Betty?
Well, Betty has expressed a lot of interest in this show, and we want her to travel with us. She's 91 years old. She's not going to stop, and she said, "I'm going to go to Shanghai with you when this show opens in the city of Shanghai." We have a lot of requests from China as well. A lot of people love classical music. They appreciate this group of Jewish refugee for bringing classical music to China. Right. And then Betty is a wonderful addition.
And is this the final standing ovation for one of your performances, obviously, right?
And so this was the workshop performance about a year and a half ago at the University of Delaware. We have, changed the book and then perfect a lot of things, added new songs. So it's a totally different show now. But that's what workshops do. You perfect every minute, every second of the show, so then the audience cannot even breathe. That's the level of engagement we're looking for. But that was already super rewarding to see the audience absolutely go nuts.
Right.
And so, yes.
So, Sean, do you do the orchestra? Do you lead the orchestra at all the shows, or do you have someone else helping you with that?
No, we have our wonderful music director, orchestrators, and one of them is Astor Denberg from the state of Delaware originally, and he lives in New York City, and he's been an amazing music director, orchestrator, and arranger. So I don't conduct. I enjoy the show in the audience, and I still cry every time I hear some of the songs. It's so. And
are you a joint director on the show, or do you have a director as well?
We have our own director. Right. Currently, our stage director is Chongren Fan from New York City, and he's the only stage director for musicals who's originally from China. So he's similar to me, from China but trained in the United States. It's been a teamwork with many talents, many people. Contribution came from so many people, but we're also really honored. We received a huge multi-million-dollar gift from a donor, so that's allowing us to perfect the show, which is unheard of in Broadway history, recent history. That before we even make our name, we already received this type of support. So you're going to be hearing about Shanghai Sonatas very soon.
Okay. Kind of a fuzzy picture, but I just like this. You had a performance just this past February, and where you told about your show and publicized it at the University of Virginia, East Asia Center. Great.
Yes.
And here's a scene from the show. And the violin is broken. You want to just talk about it for a second?
Yes, this is after the bombing. It's interesting is the U.S. bombing of the city of Shanghai. They were targeting at the radio tower of the Japanese. But of course, in wars, civilians are killed every single war, right? So the Americans were trying to disable the communication system of the Japanese. But then they end up killing so many people in the Jewish ghetto, the local Chinese. This is one of the characters whose violin that came with him from Austria got completely destroyed. And then this show is very, very rich. So many different stories, different characters, and developing in their own ways.
Sure.
This is the liberation. You know, after the Americans and the Chinese armies, liberated Shanghai, they start dancing and they're like, "Oh, is it true we can go anywhere we want?" But then their dream actually was stopped immediately by the Red Cross announcement of the survivors.
Right.
And, in the show, they're like, how can they put names of the survivors on a few
Right.
pieces of paper?
Of course, it's so interesting because by 1949, by the time the Chinese communists take over, there are very few Jews. Almost all the Jews have left, either gone to Palestine, Israel, or to the United States.
Yeah, Australia.
Australia, right.
Yeah. Very interesting time. And then some also stayed, obviously, longer. But honestly, I think just the fact that humans can do great things, and as long as we have the goodwill, we could really make the world a better place for our children's children. So this is the Tanhua character. Her name is Tanhua, and she's picking up a singer, very famous, but her opera house and her husband were all destroyed. Her husband was captured and killed by the Japanese during the anti-Japanese movements, and then her opera house was bombed by the Japanese, and then she refused to perform for the Japanese. And the Japanese people loved Peking opera. But her hope, just like the whole generation of Chinese during that time, with the Western invasion, with the Japanese army, they were looking for something new, right? China experienced 140 years of Western invasion. It's unbelievable. That's part of the reason, the Chinese people, they don't want to be told what to do anymore. They're so sick of it but if you have to understand the history, I'm not pro-China at all, but I just want, my work is, we Americans, we need to know about China because the Chinese people know about us so much better than we do them. So then Tanhua wants her son, the only hope for her life, to learn Western music from the Jews. So maybe there's new value, new hope, instead of the completely destroyed Chinese society and hopeless lives.
Right. Yes, they were the brunt of imperialism, they would call it, whether there's the British, the Americans, the French, everybody took a piece of Shanghai, right? It was an international open city. And I guess there was resentment by the Chinese for other countries and cultures coming and opening them up, right? That was
that's the beauty of cultural and arts and humanities and traveling. You need to really travel to see. Imagine New York City, all the, half the blocks belong to other countries. And then if people committed crime in those concessions, they don't follow U.S. law. Imagine how that would feel to us Americans, So that's happened to the Chinese for over a century. And so we are really telling true stories. Nothing political. It's totally humanities. And then we could understand what happened in history, and then we could make better choices for our children's children.
Right.
So this is the magic violin that Benny plays that brings him back to a Paramount nightclub, which is a big nightclub in Shanghai at the time, by Lemen. And then so he would join the Jewish musicians and dancing and singing, and finds himself in a strange place, travel to home. Yeah, this is the concert version, by the way. We have no set, no projection, but it tells this whole story with the orchestra behind. It could be a chamber orchestra or a full orchestra.
Well, that's another huge decision. What kind of set is that? Is that in production? Is it in artistic design already?
Yeah, with the leadership gift we recently received, we're going to have our whole team to work with professional, designers, and then we're going to make a full production available very soon. We're also hoping to work with regional producing theater companies to make it Broadway ready. So the producers, 4 Broadway producers, are working with me. We're trying to make this ready in about 18 months. Yeah, so this is a wedding in the ghetto. You know, we thought of Betty Grebenshchikov doing this song. It's called "Crossing the Garden Bridge," which is a garden bridge, a real bridge in connecting the ghetto and the city of Shanghai. The Jews did not have the freedom to go out and cross the bridge, and they're singing about one day we want to cross the garden bridge and have our freedom.
And that only happened in 1943 when the Shanghai ghetto was contained. Before that, between 1938 and 43, they did have free reign of the city.
Yeah, they owned shops, they owned restaurants, and they had concerts. They had a real little society there.
Right.
With the help of the local Chinese.
Not only, mostly Jews who came after 1937-38 were sent to the ghetto. Those who had been there before weren't. But many Jews were put in concentration camps if the Japanese thought they were anti-Japanese and enemy aliens. Yeah. And many Jews went into concentration camps in Shanghai area.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and the history is, very colorful. There's people, good people, bad people, and on all sides. And what we want to do is give the children, give our students, our young Americans, an opportunity to develop their critical thinking skills to understand the true stories of history, and so they can read the news and activities happening in the world today with a more clear mind.
So this is another more artistic rendering of the logo.
Yes. With the violin behind, and then it's the map.
The violin behind it, beautiful.
And then the layer below that is the map of Shanghai during that time.
Yeah. I see. Beautiful.
Thank you.
Oh, and then we're back.
Yes.
And there we are. So we're going to, on that beautiful note, we're going to come back to our discussion with you as we finalize our talk. And I'm going to ask you for a couple of closing thoughts about the show and your purpose for writing it, your vision, and what you want us, you already gave us an idea, what you want us to get from it. And of course, your hopes for its success. That's the most important thing.
Yeah, absolutely. This show is really about the deep connection between humans. We come from so many different cultures, and I'm hoping this show could bring some comfort and hope and sense of unity to our troubled communities in the United States and the world, and we want to promote Holocaust and genocide awareness because humans must learn from our mistakes. If one group of humans kills 6 million humans from another group and can justify that, that is a scary part of the history that cannot be repeated. And if people are denying Holocaust and genocide, to me, that has to be stopped. And then we, in higher education, in the arts, we are responsible for that. For all the activities happening in the United States, I feel really underachieved. And as an educator and artist, I feel like I haven't done enough. So I love to team up with all of you. The kids of our country, in addition to the terrible pandemic, what's happening in this country, they are seeing this with their own eyes, and what's going through their young minds will change the world of the future. So I think that's what this production is all about. And I love to brainstorm with people out there if you have ideas, and I hope really by coming to the show, by supporting this type of production, that we could really find a way to live together. This country, the beautiful thing about the United States is the world cultures are right in our backyard. If we don't take advantage of it to understand the world, to understand different parts of the world, we're really losing so much. You know, for the Chinese to know so much about U.S. politics, U.S. blah blah blah. So many of us don't know anything about China or any other country. Just not enough. I think we all are responsible for that. We need racial harmony. You know, I don't like to do an Asian hate. You know, I'm Asian. I'm sad to tell my family members to be careful when they step out of the house, because people who look like us are being hated and targeted and murdered. But that's still a small case compared to the whole world. You know, I think I feel loved in the United States. I have so many amazing friends from all different communities. I think it's important that we voice our concerns and rights, but it's equally important that we also reach out to other communities and to promote racial harmony and to support others and do everything ourselves. So start from our own family. We never, discriminate anyone, and we understand the human quality of all different cultures, and I think that's important. You know, I that's why I feel like that as an Asian American, I wanted to say to all of y'all that if you're from Asia, it's important that we tell all our American friends that they can lean on us too. They can count on us too. You know, it's not just our rights, but we need to take leadership of this country and help all people, all Americans.
Right. Well, that's a wonderful message, Sean. And of course, your music, your art, they can transform people's feelings, emotions, and maybe their behaviors over time, certainly bring understanding. And you're doing wonderful work in that regard. And we stand with you in the Asian American community. And I want your show to be a success, and we were going to follow it and stay in touch. And when you get that first production on Broadway, I'm going to be sitting in the premiere seats, cheering you on. It's been a pleasure. And again, the website is just shanghaisonatas.com, or you can go to Sean.Gao, his website too, and learn more about him. And we'll see. This is a perfect time because, as I said, this is the week we memorialize the Holocaust, the victims, survivors. So what a perfect marriage of our history, our culture, our understanding, and music. Thank you so much, Sean. We'll see you again, and see you all next time on Talkback. Bye.
Thank you, L'chaim.
Bye. Okay.